Hi, I'm Jared Hutter. I'm a graduate of Syracuse University, and I proudly support both Israel and Syracuse by donating my Israel bonds to Syracuse University. Visit israelbonds.com to learn more and see how you can do the same.
Coming up in today's newscast, Rona Ramon, the founder of the Ramon Foundation and widow of Israeli astronaut Ilan Ramon, passes away at 54. Prime Minister Netanyahu is confirmed officially as the new defense minister, and Israel's space exploration organization Space.il puts the finishing touches on a landmark craft. Rona Ramon, the widow of Israeli astronaut Ilan Ramon and the mother of Israeli Air Force pilot Asaf Ramon, who was killed in a training accident at the age of 21, died on Monday at the age of 54 following a battle with pancreatic cancer. Despite the terrible tragedies that had befallen her family, Ramon, who is a mother of 3 additional children, became a symbol of hope and perseverance for many in the country over the last 10 years. Her husband, Ilan Ramon, was killed in 2003 on board the Columbia Space Shuttle, which disintegrated during re-entry. But after, Rona Ramon spent the better part of the last decade honoring the memories of her husband and son through the establishment of the Ramon Foundation, which inspires young Israelis to strive for academic excellence and to pursue their dreams. Her death also brought an outpouring of condolences and well wishes from Israel's public as well as the political elite, including President Reuven Rivlin, who said that, quote, Ilan and Asaf touched the sky, but Rona touched our hearts. And finally, at the request of the family, Rona will lie in state at the Perez Center for Peace and Innovation in Tel Aviv Jaffa on Wednesday morning so that people can pay their final respects. Now joining me for a deeper special look at the incredible life of Rona Ramon, who tragically died this week following a bout with pancreatic cancer, is LTV's own Lieutenant Colonel in the Air Force Reserves, Danny Grossman. Danny, it's a pleasure to have you in the show. Thank you.
I wish it under better circumstances.
So do I, actually. So you actually knew the Ramon family?
Of course. Ilan, actually, when he flew the mission to Osirak to bomb the reactor in '81, was in an F-16, and he was an F-16 pilot most of his life.
Sure.
And then he came back to he went out of the Air Force, came back, and he came to our Phantom Squadron, which was a more complicated
squadron. So you're in the same squadron with him?
Yeah, and I actually flew in Ilan. We flew, you're seeing in the background, he flew these NASA flight suits. We wore special high-altitude pressure suits for specific missions to do a high-altitude reconnaissance. The first time Ilan ever wore a high-pressure suit was in our squadron, doing a high-altitude reconnaissance. Now you can talk about it. Those days it was top secret. And so I actually was one of the senior navigators, and I got to know Ilan very well. And he came, when he was in the reactor, he was single, and he came back and he got married, young family. And Rona was the wife of the deputy squadron commander, which is a very important position. Okay. But she herself, she wasn't just the wife of, she had real gravitas, and you could see that right away. She had a presence about her. And she was someone who was absolutely noble in everything she had done. You know, she had been a part of a bereft family prior to that, and she dealt with that. And then, of course, when Ilan was killed, she came back and she was absolutely noble in starting everything that she did with the Ramon Foundation. And she touched the hearts not only of us, but she touched the hearts of all the people at NASA who she helped bring here to the Ramon conference every year in space.
And I know NASA actually also sent out their condolences.
Oh, absolutely. And the people there loved her. The fellow astronauts, not only from the mission, but all of the astronauts and all the astronauts who came. And Charlie Bolden, the former head of NASA and the current head of NASA, people really connected with her. And by the way, American Jews also connected with her as well, because she was someone, she and Ilan didn't actually grow up, they weren't a religious family.
Sure.
But Ilan grasped with both hands what it meant to be the first, not Jewish astronaut, because there were like 12, 13 Jewish astronauts. If you Google Jewish astronauts, there are a lot, including cosmonauts. But he was the first representative of the reborn Jewish state, and he grabbed that. And he flew with the Torah, and he had Hebrew music songs, including, you hear the song that Rona woke him up. Good Morning Red Team, and then a song by Arik Einstein from the Halonot HaGvoim talking about, do you hear my voice? All these things, you hear, they were people who lived modern Israel, and they recognized, both of them, what it meant to be representatives of the Jewish state.
So, and that's it. You talked a little bit about how Rona and Ilan were, very well respected and loved by their American counterparts as well, at NASA, and they spent a number of years in the United States living there. I know Asaf grew up in the States for a little while and was even, I guess, in her book, in Rona's book, My Heroes, she writes about how Asaf was very nervous to come back to Israel, and then he still, passed into the flight course that Ilan was in.
Was about to come back. He was, he went to high school in America, Texas, Houston, Texas. What's the big thing in Texas? Football. So he wanted to play football. So he knew that I was very into all of American sports here. So he said, can you hook me up with a football team? I said, no problem. I hooked him up with one of the Israeli football teams. And then he called me up 2 weeks later and says, you know what? I don't want to play football. I'll screw up my knees. And then I won't be able to be, he didn't say I won't be able to be a fighter pilot. He said, that'll prevent me from becoming an astronaut. He knew right then, as a 16-year-old kid, that where he wanted to go. And when he graduated, he was the top graduate of the class, not because he was the son of, but because he was an amazing force on his own.
And we know that Rona was equally amazing and pushed him and never stood in his way. And,
not that she never stood in his way. She
encouraged him through everything.
She had perhaps what I think is the cruelest thing in the Israeli society, which is that a bereaved mother, has to actually sign a waiver to allow her son to go into any combat role, not just a fighter pilot. Sure. So here she had to sign this paper where either you sign it and you allow him to fulfill his personal dream and become a fighter pilot, or you don't, and then it's a horrible thing. And Rona, in her own life, dealt with this, and she dealt with this with such nobility, and she dealt with this, only looking ahead. I think the final word is, I would think, she would say that she never looked at herself as the book of Job, or someone who had suffered. She looked at everything that life threw at her as a challenge to give her wings. And that's the way she helped people in the Ramon Foundation and in the Foundation for the son, for Asafi, and that's helping people. That's what she was all about. An amazing person. We will all miss her.
All right, Danny, thank you so much for coming in, and we certainly owe a very large debt to Rona. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
The Knesset voted to formally approve Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's appointment as permanent defense minister late Monday evening. This after Netanyahu had taken on the defense portfolio last month when Israel Beitenu leader Avigdor Lieberman resigned from his position and the coalition in protest of Israel's policies in Gaza. But under Israeli law, when a minister leaves his position, the portfolio automatically passes on to the prime minister for a maximum of 3 months until a new appointment can be made, or in this case, until the prime minister gets formal approval from the Knesset. Well, Netanyahu now currently holds, in addition to the prime minister's office, a total of 4 government portfolios: the foreign minister, defense minister, health minister, and immigration and absorption minister. The vote Monday night encountered staunch criticism from the opposition and only narrowly passed with a majority of 59 in favor and 56 opposed, however. Jewish Home Party leader Naftali Bennett and his number 2, Ayelet Shaked, who earlier said they would abstain from the vote, ended up supporting Netanyahu, though. Last month, Bennett demanded that he receive the defense portfolio, threatening to otherwise leave the coalition and topple the government. But in the end, he retracted this ultimatum. Yesh Atid party leader Yair Lapid also harshly criticized Netanyahu, though, and said, quote, Israel can't allow him to stay, end quote. He added that in looking at his first month on the job as defense minister, he had failed to keep Israelis safe amidst a wave of Palestinian terror attacks. Opposition leader Tzipi Livni cited Netanyahu's, quote, political weakness as well, and said that while he makes promises for security, in reality, this was not the case. Meanwhile, in the wake of the latest string of violent Palestinian attacks in the West Bank, as well as the IDF raids that follow them, Israel's Shin Bet head Nadav Argaman, top PA liaison to Israel Hussein al-Sheikh, and multiple others have all convened Monday night to discuss ways to lower the rising tensions. But though the meeting does demonstrate the continuing cooperation between Israel and the Palestinian agencies, it also reveals the biggest differences in opinion on the conflict. Israel blames Palestinian individuals and terror groups for the recent violence in which a baby and 2 soldiers were killed. And just earlier this week, 3 more Palestinians were arrested in Jerusalem for throwing rocks at Old City buses. But the Palestinian Authority blames alleged Israeli violations in the West Bank for the tensions. Hussein al-Sheikh, who has had many meetings with senior Israeli officials in the past, explained that in yesterday's meeting, quote, we sent a very clear message that the dangerous escalation targeting the occupied lands is unacceptable for us, end quote. He added that the IDF and settlers were massacring signed agreements and any chance for peace. Indeed, multiple Jewish price tag attacks were reported in recent days too, including the arrest of an Israeli settler suspected of attacking a Palestinian West Bank bus driver last week. And 4 Israeli teens were also arrested last week for slashing tires in an Arab Israeli town near Nazareth. And then again last night, nearly 24 more cars had their tires slashed in the Palestinian West Bank town of Yusuf. The wall of a mosque in the town of Yusuf near Nablus was also graffitied with the words, quote, "I cannot fall asleep while blood is being spilled," and "Jews wake up," end quote. Israeli police have announced intent to enter the area in partnership with the military in order to open an investigation into these attacks. Airbnb has just announced that it opposes the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement against Israel, despite the company's decision to remove Jewish listings from the West Bank on its site last month. And on Monday, Airbnb officials in Israel met with officials in the tourism ministry to discuss this issue. But following the meeting, Israel's tourism minister Yariv Levin said that Airbnb had agreed not to implement its decision against listing vacation rentals in Judea and Samaria.
הודעת חברת Airbnb כי היא לא תיישם את החלטתה להסיר מהאתר שלה את הדירות המצויות ביהודה ושומרון היא צעד חשוב בכיוון הנכון. אני אמשיך לפעול על מנת לקדם את התיירות בישראל ולשבור עוד שיאים בהגעת התיירים לארץ ואמשיך לחזק את התיירות גם ליהודה ושומרון.
But Airbnb denied the claim and said that the report was inaccurate. The company did express its unequivocal rejection of the BDS movement, but said it had communicated that Airbnb was, quote, developing the tools needed to implement our policy, and that process includes continuing our dialogue with the government of Israel and other stakeholders, end quote. In November, the vacation rental site created an uproar when it announced it would remove Jewish listings from Judea and Samaria from its site. The decision, which is still visible on the company's website, caused backlash from Israel and the global Jewish community, though, with many calling for the counter-boycott of Airbnb. Then in Israel, 2 Olim from the United States decided to take their protest one step further, creating their own website as an alternative to Airbnb called Olestay. The other website states that, quote, "We welcome any listing anywhere in Israel," end quote. Launched in early December, IDF Operation Northern Shield has now exposed and publicized a 4th Hezbollah terror tunnel crossing the Blue Line from Lebanon into Israel. The tunnels, which Israel believes are just a fraction of the total that were dug, constitute a clear violation of the ceasefire agreement in UN Resolution 1701, and they were dug with intent to attack Israel and Israelis. Now, officials from UNIFIL, or the United Nations Interim Force in Lebanon, have finally agreed on that too. On Tuesday, they confirmed the existence of all 4 tunnels exposed thus far, concluding that, quote, after further technical investigations conducted independently in accordance with its mandate, UNIFIL at this stage can confirm that 2 of the tunnels cross the Blue Line. These constitute violations of UN Security Council Resolution 1701, end quote. Now all that remains is for UNIFIL to demand that Lebanon do something about it. Lebanon's President Aoun, Prime Minister-designate Hariri, and several others have indicated that they would work to comply with the UN's directions. But their commitments haven't been specific, and no actions have yet been taken. Israel, meanwhile, is asking the international community for tougher sanctions on Iranian-backed terror group Hezbollah, which dug the tunnels, and for pressure to be added on Lebanon as well to push for Lebanon's army to aid in Operation Northern Shield from the Lebanese side. But so far, only Russia has reportedly pressured Lebanon to comply with Israel's request. The United States has supported Israel's operation to protect its sovereignty, but has held back from fully pressuring Lebanon to act. And UNIFIL troops have been deployed to maintain stability along the border in the meantime. Operation Northern Shield is set to take many more weeks to complete, with an unknown number of tunnels yet to find. After some weeks of speculation, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has finally announced that he will be attending the inauguration of the newly elected Brazilian president, Jair Bolsonaro. The ceremony is set to take place January 1st, and ILTV's Latin American correspondent Joy Gavijon is here with more details. Joy, it's a pleasure to have you.
Yes, good to be here.
All right, so tell us about this trip then.
So Netanyahu is set, according to the reports from the Prime Minister's office, he's set to travel on December 27th.
Okay.
He's going to go to Brazil, and this is going to be a historic visit because this is the first time that a sitting Prime Minister of Israel visits Brazil.
Wow. So you know, what does that mean for like Israel-Brazil relations, and kind of, is he only going to Brazil and coming back?
Well, yes, he's only going to Brazil. Last year, he was also the first sitting Prime Minister of Israel that went to South America, visiting Argentina, Paraguay, Mexico, and Colombia. Yeah. But Brazil wasn't on the list. So this time, because he was personally invited by Bolsonaro, he's decided to go. So he's going first to Rio, where he's going to meet with Bolsonaro personally, and he's also going to meet with representatives from the Jewish community, the local Jewish community.
And that's where the ceremony is going to be in Rio?
No. He's going to, after that, he's going to travel actually on December 31st. He's going to travel to Brasilia, the capital of Brazil, where the ceremony is set to take place. And yeah, he's going to be there, and he's going to be joined by many others. Mike Pompeo, the U.S. Secretary of State. Yeah, Secretary of State, is also invited. Also, many other Latin.
Yeah, I was just going to say, who else is going with Netanyahu, or who else was invited to this?
Yeah, we don't know exactly who's going to be going with Netanyahu. I assume that maybe Sarah, but we don't know. Nothing has been official about the delegation.
Okay.
But yeah, so he said Mike Pompeo, and there's also presidents of other Latin countries. The Chilean president, Sebastián Piñera, also is going to be the Bolivian president, Evo Morales, who's actually the president of a country that voted against condemning Hamas in the UN, but that's another story. So.
Sure. Yeah, we won't go too far off into that tangent. Okay, do you think that this has anything to do with Bolsonaro's promise to move the embassy to Jerusalem?
For sure, yes, definitely. I mean, that's basically what the Prime Minister is waiting for. He is expecting that Bolsonaro, after he takes office, that he will fulfill his promises, go with moving the embassy to Jerusalem, recognizing Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
And what do you think Bolsonaro is getting out of this, other than maybe PR points?
Well, I think Bolsonaro is interested in, he said before that he's interested in Israel's way of dealing with agriculture, technology. He looks at Israel as an example,
I see.
So, yeah, we'll have to see what happens with this meeting first.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the meeting. All right, well, Joy, thank you for coming in and telling us about it, and I expect you back here in December 27th, a few weeks, when he leaves.
Okay, I'll be here.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, the German government has finally agreed to make a one-time compensation payment to survivors of the Kindertransport, where primarily Jewish children were evacuated to the UK from Nazi Germany in 1938. Over 10,000 children were saved from death in the Kindertransport, but most of these kids never saw their families again. Well, the Conference on Jewish Material Claims Against Germany, also known as the Claims Conference, which is the body responsible for administering compensation to Holocaust survivors, made the announcement on the 80th anniversary of the Kindertransport, and the organization's president, Julius Berman, said that it was a result of ongoing negotiations between the Claims Conference and the German government. Special negotiator Ambassador Stuart Eisenstadt also said that despite the pain these children had to endure growing up their entire lives without family, they are, quote, receiving a small measure of justice today, end quote. The Kindertransport Fund will open on January 1st, 2019, where it will also begin processing eligible applications, and eligible survivors will be able to claim a small compensation of around 2,500 euros, or around $2,800 per person. Between doctors' shortages, long lines in the clinic, and all other manner of delays to your medical care, wouldn't it be great if there was a way to expedite the diagnosis phase in any given situation? Well, Israeli company DiagnosisMe has unveiled what they believe is going to completely change the diagnostic dynamic between patients and their doctors. And here to tell us more is Tamir Epstein, the founder and CTO of DiagnosisMe. Tamir, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you very much.
All right, so yeah, show me about DiagnosisMe. How does it work and what does it do exactly?
So I just wanted to say that yesterday we won the first prize in the digital health startup company competition. It was organized by eHealth Ventures, and it was part of the DHealth Summit, organized by by people on computer. It was a great summit with many good companies.
Congratulations! All right, so then tell me, how you won. What did you win with here?
We're developing a home diagnostic kit for detecting and analyzing a wide range of infections using smartphone.
Okay.
And this will change the way we do medicine. You will be able to run tests at home. The results will be transmitted directly to the clinic. And
will you see the results too, or?
Yeah, both
so you see it and your doctor sees it?
Yes, and the doctor sees it and writes the right prescription. The whole process should be quick, less than 20 minutes, you should receive it.
So instead of having to, go through Maccabi or Clalit and set up a thing for 2 weeks from now, and you just take the test, send it to your doctor, and that's it?
Yes, what we're developing is this chip. This plastic chip has all it takes to run diagnostics. Once you put the sample in it, you put it next to your phone, and they both form a diagnostic microscope.
Amazing. And then, okay, so, are we talking about a blood sample? So who's...
Many types of samples.
Many types of different samples.
Yes.
And then what kind of different diseases can it diagnose? Because you mentioned, many, but not all, obviously.
Right now, our first use case is vaginal infections.
Okay.
Vaginal infections is the most common gynecological problem. In the US alone, it accounts for more than 10 million office visits per year.
Wow.
Unfortunately, most women don't go to the clinic when they suffer from vaginal infections. They will try many things, home remedies,
sure,
over-the-counter products, anything to avoid it.
And I mean, in the United States, I know from personal experience, I'd say probably a major contributor to that is simply the cost of healthcare.
The cost of healthcare.
Sure.
There's also time. Some of the women are embarrassed.
Sure.
So what we offer here is running the test at home, at your convenience, in privacy.
Okay, so you've developed the special chip that combines with the smartphone and creates, a diagnostic tool for your doctor and for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and how do you get it? How do you get a hold of one of these chips?
Well, you'll either get it from the pharmacy,
okay,
or it will be sent to you by the pharmacy online.
Okay.
You don't need.
So who needs to get in touch with DiagnosisMe to kind of get this started, or this is going to be commercially available and you just go and you get it?
It could be either commercially. It will be commercially available, but we are going to partner with major healthcare providers, so they will provide and distribute the chip.
All right. Well, I can't wait to see it on the shelves. Tamir, thank you so much for coming in and telling us about it.
Thank you.
Pleasure. Yeah. All right. Somewhere on the moon, between the landing sites of Apollo 15 and Apollo 17, another incredible mission to our lunar body is soon set to arrive, and it isn't Apollo 16. It's the Israeli Bereshit, or Genesis spacecraft. According to Ido Antebi, the CEO of Space IL, which led the project, the craft is now completely built, tested, and will be ready to ship to Cape Canaveral in the coming weeks in time for launch. All that was left to do was close the cover and install the final component of the craft, a digital time capsule. On the capsule, a singular disc, are files of children's drawings, photos, and other such information on human culture and history.
This capsule will remain on the moon, and it will withstand the environment of the moon. And maybe in a couple of tenths of years, maybe someone will send a spacecraft to bring it back.
The Bereshit craft is set to take off from Florida in a few months on a SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket, and it's scheduled to arrive in a so-called soft landing. If successful, Israel would be the fourth country to ever carry out this type of descent onto the surface of the moon with an unmanned craft. This will also be Israel's first longer-range Israeli spacecraft of this type. It stands at about 1.5 meters or 5 feet tall and has 4 carbon fiber legs. Then, in addition to the time capsule, the Bereshit will also carry a device that will measure magnetic fields. And now for our Hebrew word of the day. With the Israeli Bereshit spaceship now on its way to the launch pad in Cape Canaveral, it felt only fitting that today's word was chalalit, or spacecraft. Now, a spacecraft, or a chalalit, is a vessel intended to traverse the vacuum, or halal, of space, or halal. And many chalaliyot, or spacecrafts, have been launched over the past 50 years. Though among all the chalaliyot, or spacecrafts that fly through the sky, only very few of them have actually been manned. In fact, by 2016, only 3 nations on Earth had ever launched a manned flight: China, Russia, and the United States. Though India, Europe, and even now Iran are trying to break into this select group. I wonder who will be first. But in the meantime, let's take a look at the weather forecast. Tonight should be partly cloudy and cool with a chance of scattered showers and a low of 56 or 13 degrees Celsius. Then tomorrow will be partly cloudy with no change in temperatures. The high is set to be around 67 or 19 degrees Celsius. All right, that's it for today's news. Today's exchange rate is 3.76 shekels to the American dollar. Remember to sign up for our daily newsletter at iltv.tv, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook at Israel English News and on Twitter at ILTV News. I'm Aaron Porras, and thank you for watching.
Hi, I'm Tracy Good Lowenthal, and I'm a proud graduate of the University of Michigan. I donate to Michigan, and I do it through Israel Bonds. It's a great way to show pride in Michigan and Israel. Visit IsraelBonds.com to learn more. And go blue!